Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for coming. I'm Melissa Gronlund, and I'm here with Fadi Basbous, who is the son of Alfred Basbous, and also the director of the foundation that was established in 2004, was it?
Yes, by Alfred himself.
By Alfred himself to historicize, document, and promote the work of Fadi Basbous. And I thought I would start off with a quote that I found because it relates to his work and it summarizes, I think, the ethos behind his work so well, which is, you will have 1 million thoughts and ideas. This is from Alfred Basbous. But when it comes to execution, you can only execute one in its finest and clearest form. And I think, as we go through the images, that clarity of purpose and that kind of singularity of form is what really comes out in his work, which is so elegant, so uncluttered, so clear in its purpose. And I think no matter what medium he's working in and no matter what form he's working with, it's that kind of singularity of mind that comes through when I think of his work, and that's kind of the leitmotif for this talk that I think we're going to come back to again and again. But as a way of background, Alfred Basbous was born in 1924. He was the middle brother of a trio who all became artists, which is amazing. His older brother, Michel, was the first to go to art school in Beirut and then to Paris. And Alfred worked as a stonemason on British railways, so that's where he learned to work with marble, was not in an elevated studio, but like really working with the material.
Acquiring the technique, the good technique.
Yeah, and I mean, building actual things that had to stand up rather than just tinkering around. He did his first exhibition in Beirut in 1958, and then in 1960 he received a scholarship from the French government to study under the sculptor René Colomarini at the École des Beaux-Arts in Paris. And when he was in Paris, this is really the formative moment of his career, and he became engaged with the work of other modernist sculptors such as Jean Arp and Henry Moore. And I think we can see the influence of both of those, the elegance in his work very easily. Can I ask you, Fadi, about that moment in Paris for him? It was really, you called it the pivotal moment in his career.
Exactly. Thank you, Melissa, for the introduction. Thank you for the fair to host us here in the panel. The region have been good to us. Since my dad was here in 1993, he did an exhibition in Manart Saadiyat before the art fair even began, and we at the foundation also did an exhibition, solo exhibition here in 2013. Was with the Lebanese expats here, and then we started to 2016 participating in the fair, and here we are here. And last year was remarkable. Also gonna come back to the exhibition last year we did here, the fair. Now I'll start to answering your question. The impact was of Alfred being in Paris, changed his whole life and made his career explode, because he's coming from a small village in the north of Lebanon. Even we used men still in the 60s sit in church in our village, men in front, the women behind. So to express yourself freely as an artist, it was a big challenge. When visiting a European a cultural hub like Paris, and having a model in the studio to sculpture or to draw her, made him have the courage to express his ideas freely. That's why when he came back from Paris, you see more organic forms in his work. Plus, he loves being in Paris. What is important at l'École des Beaux-Arts in Paris, Colomarini was a student of Auguste Rodin, and then he decided to distance himself from the school of Auguste Rodin, depicting the Second World War and the ugliness of the war, because Europe and the world was tired from the war. And he decided to come back to the positive era and have bring the aesthetic beauty of the Greek mythology. At that time, he met Alfred Basbous, and he adopted him at his studio in Paris. This is why you see the work of Alfred Basbous and the language of it's universal, and there's a kind of positivity that govern his work and development of his career. Even he worked for 50 years, Alfred. You never see any ugliness of the war or depiction of Beirut war since, who went for 15 years. So he kept on working, and he believed that art is a universal language, and it should bring balance and stability to the conscience of man. That's why if you look and engage yourself in the work of Alfred Basbous, you always see positivity and aesthetically the beauty of the material, and also, of course, the subject at its best.
You mentioned Greek mythology, but he also drew on Phoenician forms and I wouldn't say mythology, but history. Could you talk a little bit more?
But they were connected. You know, Ishtar was Aphrodite, and so it is really connected, the mythology. They are really connected in the region.
Could you talk more about his inspirations?
Yes. Alfred has a profound feeling to the material and great respect to the human values, for the family, the mother, the woman she can be a lover, she can be a mother, she was the main source of his inspiration. And he sculpted her as a lover, he sculpted her as a caring, lovable human being. She's around most of his subject of figurative. The value at in the work of Alfred Basbous is very important. The subject is equal to the practice and the result of the artistic work, because he believed you need to engage himself as an artist. He's like an ambassador to bring humanity a strong message of balance and beautiness. You see his work he started from classical and then shifted to figurative and quickly shifted to abstraction. But even when he reached the abstraction, his abstract doesn't come from nothing. It's a development and evolvement of his practice and his ideas at the same time. Even the abstract has organic forms, and you still see the human forms in it.
When did he shift from figuration to abstraction? Was that when he returned to Beirut?
Well, figurative and abstraction was the two main periods Alfred worked on, and he kept on coming back every sense. But earlier in his work, he started with a classical phase, like a social life, when you see a beautiful lady or socializing. So I can. And the woman has a beautiful anatomy, so he used to let me sculpt your face on, let me do. And he visited people in his studio, and it was like a workshop. And he also had he received many artists who used to work alongside his studio. And then he sculpted small animals he used to see in the village. After he came back from Paris, and you see the Art Deco style little bit, like he started to do stylization in the head, like doing half a face, minimalize figures, like without an eye, without a nose, and a little bit half of the head abstraction. So he started to little bit influence of Art Deco and the French school, and then directly shifted to minimalistic, figurative, until he reached quickly to the abstraction, where he believed this is the most challenging period of his work.
Could you talk a little bit about this kind of, like, there's like almost like a polarity between the time that he was in Beirut, which was the golden age of the 1960s, and so many all the cultural forms happening, nightlife, music, art galleries, money flowing through, and this kind of village of Roshana that he created with his brother as an open-air museum, and it was recognized by UNESCO as being, I think, the
1998, yes.
in 1998 as being the like ne plus ultra for public art in the Middle East region.
Yeah.
Was he based in Beirut, and would he like escape to Roshana, or was he based in Roshana and he would escape to Beirut?
No, it was based in Roshana, and the society he meet and celebrate in Beirut, they used to escape during the week into Roshana, because Roshana at that time was like the cultural artistic hub, because they were pioneering in the region and they were one of the first who started sculpture in the region. So it was like something special. And when he came back from Paris and alongside his brother Michel, they decided to create Roshana as an international open air museum, because they saw the greatness of the French city and the art scene there. So they had big hope, they had big vision. Of course, such vision needs a big support of funds from the government, which has never happened there. But in the art scene, the people who loved and the society in Beirut are vibrant, and as you say, and I've heard, and I was born after the 60s and the 70s, but I've heard it was a golden era where the social life was good, everything was good. So the people interested in art and culture, so they used to come to Roshana. And also the first theater in the region happened in Roshana with Jacques Lang. He had a group called Nancy who performed in Roshana in the 60s, where we didn't have a road in the village, and people used like horses or donkeys to go there, but they managed to do a theater there. So it was like a vision for something's gonna happen in the region, and I believe we're not gonna witness someone like Alfred and his brothers to work in such strength and belief to build something for 50 years, believing that they will create a small village and bring her to the international map. Something crazy. Knowing now that the art world needs a lot of funding and a lot of work, so it was an achievement, something unimaginable to be done at that time.
What is Roshana now? I mean, I've seen the pictures, and actually it reminds me a bit of Niki de Saint-Phal, the Nana sculptures, in the south of France, where they're kind of everywhere you look, there's this, these sinuous forms. Are they still in the countryside? Are they being, is the foundation caring for them? What is the state of Roshana now?
Roshana is a small village in the north of 50 minutes from Byblos, in the north of Lebanon. And it's 2 kilometers from the sea. It's a beautiful landscape. It's like a little bit of south of France, still preserved as a village. You can see, of course, the work of Michel and Alfred and Youssef, the three brothers. Alongside the symposium we're going to talk now, Alfred created a symposium in 1994 till 2005. Alongside the Basbous Brothers, you can see the work of the 70 artists that participate during the symposium. What we are doing as a Alfred Basbous Foundation, we run the estate of Alfred Basbous. We try to narrate the story of this fantastic artist who believed in his work and worked for 50 years, and and he deserved to be on the international platform. And as a foundation, we have a committee, we have a strategy. We decided to, of course, besides on preserving the work there at the foundation, where you can see his work from different material, wood and marble or bronzes or aluminium, to promote Alfred on the international map. This is the main mission, because you cannot now, Lebanon is not on an international map or hub. We all know the situation there. So we need to bring his art to the world, and we're positioning ourselves to promote in London and in Abu Dhabi. Those two main points, and Dubai as well, the window. We need a window to the world, and we decide as a foundation we need to first launch a publication on Alfred Basbous, which is what we did with Skira. We signed for 3 catalogs. The first catalog is we're launching this week and here at the fair. It's an introduction interpretation on the foundation, the aim, and the biography of Alfred Basbous. Next year will be the catalog monograph, and in hopefully 3 or 4 years the catalog raisonné we can publish, all with Skira. Also, we have commissioned also a private curator to publish a specific essay from his point of view aside, so we can build a bibliography and you can have a reference, something to read on Alfred Basbous and his work on the international map.
I also understand that last year from your exhibition here at Abu Dhabi Art, the Guggenheim Abu Dhabi acquired a piece for their collection. And also you helped support the Lyon Biennial, which had Alfred in its... Sam Bardot and Till Felrath curated an exhibition called Beirut, the Golden Age, which was at the Gropius Bau in Berlin, and then later in the Lyon Biennial, which is where I saw it. And Alfred's work was prominently displayed in it.
Yes.
You know, he was part of that Beirut scene, but his influences remained European till the end. Could you talk about that kind of polarity in his work between Beirut and Europe, which I think is a kind of polarity that marks so many artists of that period who studied in Paris and then came back to the Middle East?
Yeah, well, something when Alfred was first, I want to thank Sam Bardawil for the forward he made for this catalog, Alfred Basbous, Modernist Pioneer, and congratulations him for the Biennale Lyon. He did something gorgeous for the Beirut in general, to promote the art, and I believe the title was the Manifesto of Fragility. It was really very significant, and we were happy to have the work of Alfred Basbous at the Biennale. And we also have been supporting a little bit with small amount of funds as a foundation to help younger Lebanese artists to be able to ship and exhibit the work. So this is a cooperation we did with Sam Bardawil and the fair there. What was the second question? Okay, emphasis, yes. Sorry. One pivotal point, Alfred discovered the work of Henry Moore when he was working in Paris. And then a friend of Alfred, his name is a famous architect, Racine Kling, organized a meeting between Alfred and Henry Moore. And they met in Match Haddam in 1974. And Alfred was really inspired by the work and genius of Henry Moore, and moreover, he was really shocked how much he had support Henry Moore, how much Henry Moore had support from the government, and he was like hoping he will have one day a support from the government, because you need a lot of. As an artist, you need material, you need funds. It costs you a lot. And as an artist, he's not a businessman. So, but the work of Henry Moore, Alfred was influenced by him deeply, and almost obsessed about him and Barbara Hepworth. And he always aiming to challenge himself to come to the level of their work. Even the gypsum we see here on the cover of this book, it looks abstract, but it's figurative. It's you can see a little bit of two persons, and there's a lot of Henry Moore influence, in my opinion, in this one. So knowing the work of Henry Moore, one of the greatest in the 21st century, Alfred was back to Roshana and was like obsessed about the greatness of all the monumental sculptures he did and all the research. They exchange ideas and letters. We're gonna publish in the catalog raisonné the letters that we have from between Henry Moore and Alfred Basbous. But yes, I believe Alfred has the values of the Middle Eastern family, but the technique and the expression of the more European in his work.
In those letters, what does Henry Moore take from Alfred Basbous?
Well, there's one letter that mentioned that he didn't expect a student from Paris to be a full artist already. Yeah, because
It's an English burn on the French.
Sorry,
It's an English comment about the French.
It could be. It could be. Could be a British joke or something. I don't know. But no, because Alfred was like studying in Paris, and then he went when he met Henry Moore. He said, "Okay, I cannot believe that you're a student in art and you are already a full artist." So later on, I'm gonna leave this the publishing and the curator, so everything gonna publish. I'm not gonna ruin their surprises. Mason, nice try.
Do you want to flip through some of the images that you have assembled?
This is the cover of the book we have. It's available on skira.net also if you want to buy and you know the biography. This is the foundation, the garden, a 3 meters concrete. These three brothers, because Michel, Alfred, and Joseph, because they were three sculptures, they all were artists. This is one abstract organic form on the left, seated woman. This is the building of his studio, now becoming the foundation where we preserve his work, and you can do research on his archive up in the bibliothèque. This is a portrait of my mother, the wife of the artist, Mary, which is he did her head in classical form, and then in Art Deco style, gonna be in the monograph. This is abstract. This is one of the pieces acquired by the Guggenheim, Abu Dhabi, which is we're very happy and excited about the news and the acquisition. This is also an abstract, but you can see the organic forms.
How much does his work change through the years? Like, is it very easy to trace a kind of a narrative arc? Or it seems to me, having studied him and researched him, he kind of goes back and forth between forms. Like sometimes he's interested in the void, and then it leaves his practice and comes back 20 years later. Is that...
Exactly. Legitimate question, very important question. Alfred always used to come back because he always believed the research will never stop. He's always in search of the truth. He's always in search for the best line or best aesthetic. How can he evolve and develop the idea and bring it into practice? And in which way it should be the best outcome to deliver the idea. So sometimes he do the work, and then after a period, and the same idea and the same lines, try to develop it to the best he can. So that's why you see sometimes he come back to this same period and leave it for 10 years and then come back later on.
And he worked in Lebanon throughout his whole career, and even during the war. And you mentioned before how he remained relatively unaffected by the war. He didn't depict it in his work. But can you see any influences? It must have been such a traumatic time and such a disturbing time, even if he was in Roshana and not in Beirut. Can you find any? Do you see the reflection of those events in his practice, or did he completely exclude it?
No, he was affected as a person because it's a terrible war, devastating. But he always believed that the art has a mission and should be positive and should bring hope for the human. So he never allowed himself to depict ugliness or to go into political message in his work. Only a message for humanity and the language, international language that anyone can read and engage. And he always used to say that. And the more important than the artwork itself, it's two people negotiating and engaging in the art discussion about this artwork. That was, you know, it was very noble and very human, and have great respect for humanity. And he always believed we should be, in order to build and recreate ourselves, we need to be productive and positive, and not to stay at certain point or cry for what happened. We need hope to build and rebuild. And this is actually what we need as humans. We have learned through difficulties only hope, and by work and by positivity and by recreating ourselves and accepting what happened and look to the future, that we can build and understand. When I was young, I never understand the work of Alfred Basbous. I used to believe it's complicated and art is difficult. And even when I used to be in school and they ask you what your father does or do, or I don't know, he sculpt, do something with materials. I really never understand the process until I grew up and start to look into his work and do the exhibitions and start to understand Alfred each time and start to discover him. And I noticed that when I start to know myself, I start to understand the work of Alfred Basbous. So it's not like something about the shape, or it's something about humanity, about ourselves. Alfred was posing questions that we all need to ask ourselves. And this is how I see the work of Alfred Basbous.
Can I ask a personal question? Was he still alive when you made this transformation to understanding his work? Was he there to witness it?
No, I was like it wasn't. I was at 26 when he passed away, and I was really away from the art scene. And the president of the foundation was. I wasn't involved in the foundation. But after my father passed away, and the director and the ex-president of the foundation were too busy. They were businessmen, and were too busy to meet and to generate the focus and the energy needed for the foundation. And my mother wished that we need to do something for the legacy, because the purpose of the foundation is to have someone to tell the story until we can reach museums and international institutions, until we've done the book, and then we will go to the next step. And then I sent a letter for the ex-president and said, yes, we're happy to give it back. And then I start to be involved in the foundation in the 2009, 2010, and to build up the business side of the foundation, because we needed funds and we didn't want to rely on sponsors in order to apply our strategy in the same direction without being interfered with many opinions as possible. And in the time to be able to bring up the friends and the committee that were really faithful to give the energy needed, because it's a we job, and it's a work of a teamwork. I could be director today, I will not be director next week, but we have a team, which is, I'm really grateful for all the effort they are doing. Among them, Roshana, she joined the strategic team of the foundation. Too bad she couldn't be with us today. So at a later stage, I starting to be involved in the exhibitions and the selection. I start to understand the work of Alfred Basbous, and each time I do an exhibition, or we're doing a catalog, or we're doing speaking with any curator, I discover something new. So it's a constant discovery about the work, about myself as well.
It's really wonderful work that you're doing, not only to bring, this part of history to prominence and to secure his place in the narrative of the Middle East art, which is so patchy and sometimes so arbitrary and sometimes so difficult to properly document it, and to make sure that the authentic and the sincere narrative is the one that's written down in the history books, but also, to do on a personal basis to honor your father. It's really a lovely. It's really a lovely mission.
Exactly. I consider him as a friend more than a father. I always wanted this approach. I always wanted to challenge me as a person, as a young boy. That's you need to be authentic to yourself and genuine to your thoughts. And anyway, trying to bring a good story to the people that can help, especially in our part of the world, where art can play a bigger role than some other places.
Are there any questions from the audience? Saskia?
I wanted to know a bit about the relationship between the brothers. It's so interesting to have three people working with reasonably similar practices. Did they inspire each other? Did they work together?
Yes. They worked together in one workshop at the beginning, but each one has different style. Alfred was more close to Michel because Michel was like he was like the big brother, the founder of everything. He was the first one who started to sculpt and study, and he was a visionary with a sharp vision to the future, and he was very close to Alfred. And they usually they were very close friends, and they discussed ideas. The younger brother Yusuf was like really have his own world, a little bit away from them, have his own, but he's very, very good in abstraction. He did marvelous work. But Alfred was more close to his bigger brother, Michel. They worked together at the beginning, and then they quickly shifted to opening his own studio and his workshop alone.
Very interesting. And now, are they displayed together in Roshana or separately, kind of?
Separately, each one have a workshop now turned into a studio or space for visit. But the village Roshana, it's a small village. It's a few steps away from each other. So they are in the same area, but separately. So maybe it's better for the confusion. So everyone's separate. Because now you have the estate run by the family of Michel, his son, or myself with the foundation. So each one have different directions. So yes, each one is separate. It's the same location. It's closed location.
Sounds lovely.
Yeah.
I want to turn it into Marfa in the place of pilgrimage, but right by the sea. Yeah. Yep.
Hi. Hi. Thanks for this talk. I visited Roshana in 1995, actually, and I photographed your father in his studio.
Wow.
And I remember, for me, it was a really magical experience just to be in that space. And I was just wondering, probably growing up, did you sort of have any magical moments? I'm sure many, but anything that you would remember to share about?
Specifically in what? Remember?
Well, just being in that environment of an artist studio and seeing.
It was my dad, Alfred, always liked to challenge me. So sometimes like to push me into his studio and try to work, And as a young boy, I was like, I found this difficult because. And it's hard to understand yourself, what you want from life, to be aware about everything, all the details. And art, it wasn't easy for me to understand. Like I said, I discovered the work of Alfred Basbous when I was a little bit older. But the idea was fascinating because Alfred was, Alfred was a person who celebrated life. I used to celebrate life. He was a very joyful person. You've met him, and of course you know that. His energy is really remarkable. I would love to have those photos anyway.
Absolutely.
You tried to find them yesterday for me on your Dropbox. I haven't forgotten. I want to see them too.
Okay, great. No, it was just a beautiful, beautiful memory, and I'll always remember that time.
I'm glad to hear.
It seems like a really lovely place to wrap it up, I think, unless anyone has any other questions or...
No, fine.
Yeah? Sarah.
Sarah, thank you for everything.
Of course, thank you for this lovely panel. I'm personally a big fan of your work and the legacy that will carry on for years and years.
Thank you.
My career involved in the past education, and I used to deal with students and parents, and it really struck me when you mentioned how in the past, when anyone used to ask you what your father did, you were explaining it in my father used to create things with his hands, right?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering now, if you were to answer this question from a young child who asks you, what do you do? What would you what would you describe what you do to a child who's interested to understand this kind of art?
Well, we should go engage him in a question like, how would you describe your feeling by drawing a line or doing a mold? So those type of engagement that helps students or young children to understand art, to be engaged. Because in the sculpture you have to think three-dimensional and to express in a three-dimensional way. In the normal school, you have, you know, the normal standard of education. Now, of course, there's more development in the student. They take them to museum. The students are more engaged to see and understand the work of art. But few workshop we did with schools in Beirut with the foundation. We did small seminars when we bring children and we pose a question: how do you describe your day to day? What something special happened? Can you draw it? And you express your feeling by drawing. We usually express our feeling by writing or doing action, but doing a practice and a form of three-dimensional to express a feeling is something you need to get used to since a younger age.
Thank you so much.
Does that reply to you?
Yes.
It's fair enough? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, this is art and a form of self-expression.
Exactly.
And I think it's good to teach kids that show us what you can do with your hands, whether through music or drawing.
Exactly. So
Yes.
how you describe your day.
Start
Exactly.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Sarah.
But I wonder if that's been, I think kids always start with 3 dimensions, and then you have to push them towards a symbolic vocabulary. You know, like you do a sun with lines, and you're like, that's a sun. And they're like, no, it's a circle with lines.
Yeah.
I think in some ways, a 3-dimensional is more intuitive for them.
When you draw, it's 2-dimensional.
Yeah, no, that's why I mean 3-dimensional is more intuitive, and 2-dimensional has to be learned.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. It should be learned. But I believe that nowadays there are many museums and students, and they are going into this approach. I have watched many museums that have this approach with students, and they apply this as a practice when students visit the museum.
Oh, great.
I'm just gonna go through a little bit to show the catalog, biography. Alfred was Colla Marini. His how can I point? This is Colla Marini. This one, Colla Marini, and student of Auguste Rodin. And this is the artwork of Alfred Basbous at the Musée Rodin, acquired since 1961 in Paris. Alfred Henry Moore, 1971, in March Hadam. Okay, I said 74 during the talk. It's 71. Sorry. Some of Alfred's how he used to work with the mold in terre glaze, mother and child, polystyrene. He used several mediums in the approach for the idea I was working on. Voila, this is the cover. Voila. We have currently an exhibition at Sotheby's, Dubai till 24, November 24. It's part of the exhibition there. Also, we did a talk to launch the book. Voila. We're done here.
That's great.
Thank you so much. You've been there.